3, 2, 1.
What was going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Metaverse Church Podcast. And with me today is not only our very first guest to the show, but also a longtime friend to definitely us over at Lakeland VR. Jeff Reed, how you doing, man?
Hey, doing great. First time caller, long time listener here to the Metaverse Church podcast. Definitely excited to be on the show here with the Stunami. I think this is the first time I've said Stunami publicly on a broadcast. Stunami. That's awesome.
It could be. You know what's funny is we got a lot of mutual friends. One of them being like Jay Earhart and Mark Lutz.
Lutz. I think I can say that correctly now. Hopefully.
Okay.
He's not here to correct me. Lutz.
He'll end up hearing this and he'll call us both out. But anyways, what's really funny is I've hopped on to both of their Twitch streams and both of them have just called me Stun. And I just think it's so funny. And because I've never seen it.
The shortening of Stunami is Stun. That's funny. It's not Stu, it's Stun.
I've never noticed that before until both of them called me out on it. And I'm just like, wow. Okay, well, I might need to rethink this, but that'll be a different story for a different day. So
that's awesome.
But yeah, man. So you've been a longtime friend to us at Lakeland, and you have kind of helped us in major ways getting into really not only what we do digitally at Lakeland, but really getting into virtual reality and whatnot. You've been a longtime support and whatnot, and I came across an article recently this past week that was talking about everything that our heart beats to on this podcast, the idea of Metaverse and bringing church into it. And so an article came out talking all about a mission trip in the Metaverse. And so I wanted to bring you on just to kind of talk about, Jeff, what did I just read in this article and why do our listeners care?
Yeah, this is funny. This came out of left field for me. It was an article, it was in Relevant Magazine, and Monday I get a ping. Monday I'm in the middle of like backwater Georgia. There is like no cell signal, no internet. Like I'm literally at this retreat center on like a disconnect from society. And the one bar of 5G, 4G that I get at this place, I get this text message from a church that I'm working with that says, "Hey, Relevant Magazine just published an article about us." And so I've got a friend that we started working towards creating a mission trip into the metaverse. So we've been toying around with this idea. He had brought it to my attention, but the idea was centered around creating an opportunity for people to get into the metaverse. Ryan Sidholm is the guy's name with the church, and so he poised this idea. And I love this. It's, hey, you know what? When you go on like a mission trip to, I don't know, Bolivia, you're gonna pay for a plane ticket to Bolivia. That's gonna cost you $1,000. You're gonna spend $500 on a hotel, room and board, expenses, food. Like you're probably gonna end up spending $1,700, $1,800, maybe $2,000. Plus, you're gonna miss a week's worth of work to go into Bolivia to do physical, tangible ministry. You're going to meet people. You're going to tell them about Jesus. You're going to serve in some capacity. But that's what a physical mission trip looks like, right? And so what Ryan asked me is, what does a metaverse mission trip look like? And so he and I started months ago, brainstorming around this idea of doing a mission trip where you don't have to buy a plane ticket. You probably have to buy a VR headset. And the people that you're engaging with don't necessarily live in just Bolivia. They live globally, and there's even different contexts to explore. And so we put out this idea, and Ryan's church is the first church that's digging into it, where we are creating a mission trip over the month for his church in June, digging into training them, doing evangelism training. How do you share Jesus in the metaverse? How do you build relationships with people in the metaverse? What is the metaverse? Where do you go? What are you looking for? Like the same effort and training that you would put into a group going to Bolivia or Belize or Argentina, whatever, insert country name here. We're doing this in virtual reality, and we're encouraging people over the span of we're doing it several different times, but with this one church over the month of June, to spend 5 to 10 hours a week in the metaverse, in virtual reality, for the purpose not just of having fun and goofing off, but building relationships that could be pointed to Christ. So that's the general idea. We're excited, Ryan, and we're excited about kicking that off for that church. And there's even other opportunities we'll get into soon where it's going to be a massive thing, I think, as we're trying to leverage church and get people into the metaverse.
Yeah, dude, I absolutely love it. I think, as we've talked about on this show before, one of the things that's really great about even just doing ministry in the metaverse is I think that there is a general idea that pretty much who you're going to run across is going to be somebody who speaks the same language as you and is within the same country borders as you. But when you hop into these environments, whether that is spatial or VR chat or Rec Room or even any of the game platforms that are out there like Walkabout Mini Golf or Pop One, what anybody who hops into these environments will quickly find out is that you're going to end up talking to somebody who is coming from a different part of the world than where you're at. So for us at Lakeland VR, like when we were still in alt space, I would probably say some of the most common locations that were popping into our environments were coming from people from Brazil, people from Indonesia, and people from India. Yeah, those would probably be the main areas where people were coming in from. And I just want to highlight just the opportunity that brings for anybody who is excited or interested in hopping into the metaverse is just the fact that, your local context church is going to reach your local context. Obviously, digital platforms allows us to broadcast into wider spaces for sure. But when you're just broadcasting the church out, pretty much what you're going to get out of that is just a consumer mentality. Anybody can consume the content that you are producing. But when you are doing this 3D virtual reality, talking to the person that's in front of you, all of a sudden you're actually getting the opportunity to witness to people in other parts of the world that you may have never had the opportunity to go into. So I know that we've talked about this before on this show, and I know I've talked about it with you, but when I got the invitation to hop into doing Metaverse ministry, one of the very first things that somebody in our local context church here at Lakeland asked me, what's the one thing that excites me most about doing Metaverse ministry? And I told them I became an international missionary without ever having to leave the basement of my home.
That's awesome.
Every single time I throw on a headset, I'm getting to talk to people all around the world that may have never had the opportunity to hear about the name of Jesus at all. And I'm getting to introduce that person, Jesus, to this individual that I'm having the conversation with. And who knows what they do with that information afterwards. But I've painted this picture also before too, that Jesus says to his disciples after the resurrection, going into Pentecost, just this idea of, he tells his disciples to go into the world and make disciples. So there's like this small movement that's supposed to then blow up and start reaching all the far corners of the world. Well, here in 2023, all the far corners of the world are now filtering themselves and funneling themselves back into one specific location, which is called online. And now the church has this opportunity to infiltrate those areas and meet people from all around the world that then take these seeds of hope that have now been planted back into their families, into their businesses, into their local context. And there's just this opportunity for the gospel to spread faster than it has before. So just seeing that article come out and knowing that you, who's been a longtime friend to just even Goose, myself, this podcast to Lakeland VR Cornerstone is like, okay, well, Reed's got to come on and we got to talk about what a mission in the metaverse looks like. And it's just super exciting. And I think what excites me the most about it, though, Jeff, if I were to be honest with you, you invited me to come out and speak at Exponential back in early March. But the overall interest that the church has in metaverse right now is probably the thing that I am most excited about. Can you speak into that?
Oh, totally. It's interesting. There was a stat that, I've been doing some work with PushPay and they came out with a stat recently in their State of the Church Tech Address, their report. And when I heard this stat, Stu, like, I'm going to tell it to you and your response is going to be no way. Like, I don't believe it's true. Because when I heard this stat, I was like, there is no freaking way that's true. And they double checked, they triple checked. They were like, Jeff, this is 100% true. 25% of churches today in America are open to the idea of planting a virtual reality metaverse expression of church. 25%.
Sweet.
20% are open to the idea of planting a digital expression of a church outside of what they're doing on the broadcast. Like, these stats for me were flabbergasting. But I think it's is that the right word, flabbergasting? But it's a sign. It's a sign of what 23 is. 2022, there was a lot of negativity centered around some of these ideas of virtual reality churches like what you guys are doing through Lakeland and what Goose is doing through Cornerstone, and some of what our friends are doing in digital space, like Mark, don't call me Lutz, with Lux Digital Church, and things like what these guys are doing and gals are doing, and Bosarge with her church, and so many others, and heading in. Like, there's been so much tension against these ideas of digital only, metaverse only, virtual only, no physical buildings involved. But I think 23, there's beginning a pendulum shift where there's more open to this. We're recognizing that discipleship can happen outside of the physical building, and maybe the physical building really has been struggling over these past couple of decades with defining and showing what discipleship is. And maybe we need some new ideas to reach a different type of person. And so as a result of that, man, we're seeing, personally, I'm seeing a lot more interest in virtual reality church, in metaverse church, in digital church, in gamer church, in influencer church, and like all of these different approaches, which is awesome, because all of these different approaches reach a different person. You're going to reach a different person, Stu, with what you guys are doing, than who Mark's going to reach, or who Dr. John's going to reach, or who Ann's going to reach, and because all of our contexts, all of our environments shape who we are, which shapes our relational capacity, which shapes how we're going to be able to connect in these digital spaces. And so it's very exciting to see some of the responses that we had at that exponential conference. Like, you spoke one of maybe there's probably 12 or 13 sessions over the span of the Expo conference. And I'll give you a quick shout out right here. We're looking at ramping up and doing even more than that in 24. So don't tell anybody. But the plan here is that, man, if you really look at this digital community and this metaverse community, this virtual communities, if you look at these different communities as legitimate communities, then the follow-up is, what is the church doing in that space? Should the church be there? And if it is real people in real community building real relationships, then yes, the church needs to be in there. We can have conversations about, is this a short term? Is this a long term? Are we trying to get people to stay in a virtual reality church for the rest of their life? At what point do they need to go physical? And to be honest, like, we could sit around and have that conversations for hours, days, weeks, months, years. But really, we just need to get in there and start. I love what you say, Stu, on what's the saying that you have on your Discord? Breaking down the gates of hell, attacking the gates of hell. Like, some phrase that you have always got on your status.
Attacking the gates of hell.
There you go, attacking the gates of hell, man. I love it. But that's what you're doing in virtual reality. You're claiming the space that the church has not gone into until today. And really, the idea of these mission trips is to get the church, the big C church, lots of little C churches, exposed to the idea of these mission trips, exposed to the idea of the metaverse. And our hope is, honestly, coming out of my internal goal, and I haven't even said this publicly before, through the mission trips that we're doing through this one church, River City Church, that's Ryan Sidholm's church. We're also doing mission trips through a learning community that we're setting up for Leadership Network, where we're going to be walking and challenging 15 to 25 churches to do metaverse mission trips. We're also working with GACX, which is the equivalent of Campus Crusade, their digital department internationally. So we're working with a number of international mission agencies and multiplication agencies internationally. So we're going to be doing a lot of mission trips, challenging even internationally organizations to adopt a metaverse mentality. I want to see 250 people on mission in 2023 in the metaverse through these mission trips. And honestly, my internal goal is to see 10 churches planted as a result of these mission trips in 2023, where we expose churches to this idea. They catch a vision for what God can do in this space, and then they plant a church in virtual reality coming out of this. Yeah, I want to attack the gates of hell with you, Stu, and
Yeah.
we're going to do it through the church.
Yeah, absolutely. So the actual tag that I have, so anybody who joins our Discord or becomes a friend with me on Discord, this is what they see. If they're just wanting to get to know who I am, period, it says attacking the gates of hell and advancing God's kingdom all over the world through the metaverse. And then I just simply ask the question, do you want to join?
That's awesome.
And so let's talk about that, because you brought up the learning communities. You brought up 10 churches in 2023, which that is the heartbeat for me and with Lakeland right now. You and I have talked about this. Goose and I have talked about it. We kind of made a hint in the last episode that something like this was coming. So we have a dream. Coming off of Exponential, I have this dream that we plant 100 churches. The way that I'm actually saying this is we plant at least 100 churches in at most 10 years, with really the dream and goal being a lot more than that, just because I believe that it can happen more. I think more than 100, and I think in less than 10 years is really the realistic side of what can happen here in the metaverse. So we've got this dream of at least 100 churches in 10 years. So we've been building up a VR church planning network system where for you come alongside us for 3 months, we'll train up you or your church leader, church volunteer, to be ready to launch your own VR church or your VR church campus. And really that's kind of the two arms that we're playing with this right now. Is if you're an individual person and you feel called to plant a church in the metaverse, we've got an arm for you to go through based off of cohort. If you are an established church that you're wanting to launch, like what we've got at Lakeland, just that multi-site campus, the VR expression, we have a cohort that you can go through. Now, everybody who's listening to this podcast is hearing this for the very first time, that this is something that we've been working towards. But the reality is, Jeff, this walks hand in hand with what you guys are doing with the learning communities. So we've even talked about, you and I off air, how really the learning community is almost like it could be a first initial step for a church that then leads into, we've got a cohort for you afterwards with Lakeland VR, with this VR church planning network. So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about the learning communities. What does this look like? What are they going to be getting out of it? And then I can come around and talk about what Lakeland provides in the process. Yeah.
So through Leadership Network, one of the organizations that I work with, we're doing learning communities this fall 23. And it's 2 physical meetups in September and late September, early December. And then there's some online meetups in between. But the purpose of the learning community is to take churches and get them exposed to the metaverse. We'll be walking through the physical meetups. The first one, we're going to be doing a deep exposure into what the metaverse is, the different worlds, the different environments, the different contexts, and even talking about evangelism, sharing Jesus online, sharing Jesus in the metaverse. The challenge within that first meetup is for your church to do a metaverse mission trip. And we're coordinating the dates for the mission trip to be October 15th to November 15th, somewhere in that time period. We'll provide training for the trainers, where we'll give you the information so that you can train people in your church. If you're not comfortable doing that, we can come alongside you and even help train the people in your church to go on this mission trip. There will be costs to the mission trip unless they have a headset. Like I said, if you're going on a mission trip to Bolivia, you're buying the plane ticket, like the volunteer is. And so in this situation, for a Metaverse mission trip, that volunteer that's going on the mission trip needs a headset. And there's opportunities to rent headsets. There's opportunities to buy headsets. And we can help you get connected into what that looks like. But we want to see, through this learning trip, we want to see churches get exposed to the idea of ministry, of community, of relationships in virtual reality. And then once you're in there and you get exposure to the mission trip, see where God's leading you. What's the Henry Blackaby quote? Look and see where God is moving and join him in his work. I think there's an opportunity for us to do that, which is why the second half of the learning community is going to be centered around planting a church and what it looks like to be a church in that space, not just doing ministry, but operating as a church in virtual reality. And Stu, I can honestly say or at least Lakeland was one of the first churches, physical churches that I've ever heard state a desire to do ministry in virtual reality.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember, honestly, I can remember the first time I met your lead pastor, Josh, and Stu, his name's Josh. And I asked, and he said, he's like, I want to do I tell his joke to Josh all the time, and it's bad. But he told me, he's like, I want to do a church in VR. And I just kind of stared at him awkwardly on the Zoom call. Like, I'm sorry, but this is the first time I've ever actually heard a lead pastor spell the words VR. Like, I didn't think it was possible for a lead pastor. He's like, no, I'm serious. This is pre-COVID, people. But the idea is to start planting churches in virtual reality. So this learning community is not only you're discovering how to do ministry in it, not only discovering God's calling for you in that space, but then we're going to walk through some of the steps to become the church, which then funnels great into Stuart's desire to do this network of virtual reality churches where their desire is to plant 100 churches over the next 10 years for virtual reality. And I'll tell you, some of the work that we're doing through Digital Church Network, we're going to be walking side by side in this and supporting this idea of attacking the gates of hell in the metaverse.
Come on.
For God's calling. And so listen, this is an exciting opportunity for churches like yours that are interested in taking some intentional steps in discovering the metaverse and exploring the idea, practically speaking, for your church to start to plant a virtual reality expression of a church. So, hey, here's what I would do. If you are interested in this, Leadership Network's website, there's a landing page with more information on the learning community. And it's leadnet, leadnet.org/MLC/ short for Metaverse Learning Community. Leadnet.org/MLC. And, it's funny. I just told Stu this. We're really excited. We're really excited about this Metaverse Learning Community. I got Leadership Network to give a discount to Stuart's friends because we want to see the gates of hell get attacked here. And so if you use the coupon code stunami, you got to figure out how to spell stunami.
Not stun.
Yeah, I tell you, it's a U because evidently stun's a thing. But Stunami, coupon code Stunami gives you $100 off the learning community. So check that out, leadnet.org/MLC, Metaverse Learning Community, coupon code Stunami.
So here's the thing. What I learned from Exponential and what I've been hearing from others outside as of late is there's a lot of interest clearly in the churches hopping into the metaverse. A lot of people are asking the question, hey, how do I bring my church into virtual reality or any of the other metaverse platforms? And really, that's been the thing is everybody has this interest, but they're not really sure what their next step is or what their first step is to get into it. And so for you who are listening, we are telling you, we have taken all the guesswork out of it and we have painted for you and clearly defined what that next step is for you. Come be a part of the learning community, come get involved with the VR Church Planning Network, because we will train up your individuals or you, whoever it is that you send, to so you'll clearly know what to do by the time it's all said and done, what you would have to do to be really successful in planting your church within virtual reality. And I said a couple of episodes ago, Jeff, we were talking about 2 episodes ago, I did one talking about why there needs to be the church in virtual reality. And these are numbers that you're familiar with. There's 171 million active users within virtual reality in 2022. 2023 is clearly projected to be into the 200 millions, if not more. And I would argue, even to a point that you've made earlier on this episode, if there are 200 million people that are in virtual reality, there should probably be 200 million churches, because every single one of us is going to reach the different type of person. Because we all do things differently. We all speak things differently. The innovation behind what's done in virtual reality is done differently from one another. What we do at Lakeland is not the same as what Cornerstone does. And what Cornerstone does is not the same as what Oasis does with VR Tiger and He Enables. We're all doing something differently, and that's all attracting a different type of person. And the beauty of it is really just the bride of Christ in the virtual spaces, just really being what we were called to be, the hands and feet, and just saying, hey, I don't follow Paul, I don't follow Apollos, I'm following Jesus, but I'm finding what resonates to me in these different pockets of individuals. To have a 1-to-1 ratio, man, I would say that is a successful church, as long as that one person who is a part of your church in the metaverse is actually being discipled and you're watching them grow on their spiritual journey. That is considered a huge win, especially if that ends up getting taken out of the metaverse and into their local context as well. So, yeah, I'm excited about what's coming. I'm excited that the global capital C church is excited about the metaverse. I'm awe-inspired and humbled at the fact that there are 25% of churches right now that are interested in this. It is way too easy to get into this. That number should be a lot higher, a lot quicker, in my opinion. And I think that's what I'm excited for. And the vision that I have is, at some point in time, 100% of the churches are going to see we can train somebody up and launch a campus to reach more people than ever before on pennies on the dollar to what we were doing for physical plants. Now, that's not to say that the physical plants don't have their place anymore, but I'm also starting to wonder, this is a conversation that Goose and I had, I'm also starting to wonder, does something like planning a church in the metaverse now equip somebody to be a local church planter in their context, because they're learning to communicate and evangelize and share the gospel with people in the metaverse, that because it becomes such a natural part of who they are, that they're now a force to be reckoned with through the Holy Spirit, that they can then go and plant a physical church in their local context to reach people that other churches haven't been able to reach yet. Who knows? I just think that that's the exciting part about what the metaverse offers to our churches today, of just the idea of, man, it's a hands-on seminary course with real life practical applications that's being done in real time, with life transformation that's taking place. And if you could do all of that, again, for pennies on the dollar, why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah, the cost to reach a person, to disciple them, to build the relationship, is, like you said, literally pennies, comparative to some of the physical ministry opportunities, some of the international ministry opportunities, even that you're able to do, because VR is a global thing. It's an exciting season for this, and even some of the numbers that you stated on VR. Apple's 2 months away from rolling out their headset at WWDC, and I guarantee that's going to move the needle in the adoption rates for that. I can understand. Hey, you know what? People don't trust Meta. They don't trust Facebook. I get it. I don't know that I do it at maximum level either, to be honest. But virtual reality is a force to be reckoned with. The community is desirable, and it will grow. And this is just a precursor to augmented reality, mixed reality, and many of the things that are coming very soon. And so, churches, I would challenge you, take advantage of the season. For the love of all, let's get ahead of the curve here. Let's learn how to adopt into some of these new communities and new spaces, because things are just going to get weirder in the years to come as the metaverse expands out here. We haven't even talked about artificial intelligence in this, but at the end of this, man, there's going to be incredible opportunities for the kingdom, and the churches that are going to lean into this and are going to take advantage of it. They're going to receive the rewards, the benefit, the missional opportunities, and the conversions as a result of it. And I'm excited to play the part that I am in helping churches get on board. So this has been great.
Yep. All I can say is, Jeff, thanks for paving the way for us here at Lakeland VR to get into it, and even just digital spaces as a whole. You've helped us do that. So thank you on behalf of all of us for just paving that path for us. Thank you for being what I just heard you talk about it with Mark. Thank you for being the pioneer and getting shot so we can come settle in.
That's awesome. Yeah. Hey, I tell you what, if anybody's got questions on the learning community, you can hit me up on Discord. It's Deerfedge, my name backwards, DEERFFEJ. I think I'm number 3369. And so you can hit me up on that, or I'll give you my phone number, cell phone 484-324-8724. So feel free to text or call me. But yeah, I would love to help some churches get in this learning community. I want to see some churches planted in virtual reality. I want to see churches discover the missional opportunities, the mission field that exists in this space. And I want to see lives changed as a result of it. So anything that I can do to help your church, to get you connected with guys like Stun here, and get the next steps in discovering your purpose in virtual reality for the kingdom. Yeah, let's figure that out, and let's do that together.
Learning community, you said 25 churches, 25 spots?
Yeah, my goal is 25. If I get 50 churches on board, we'll do another learning community. Like there's opportunities for this thing to blow up, and I'm excited to see it happen. We're actually doing a season centered around discovering the metaverse and digital mission fields over on my podcast, the Church Digital Podcast. So we're going to kick that off in May. And so that's thechurch.digital/podcast. More subscription information there, as well as the other podcasts that are part of the network, which Metaverse Church Podcast is part of. So it's a lot of, we're joking about like getting shot. It's a lot of fun doing stuff that the rest of the world doesn't necessarily agree with. And I'll tell you why it's fun, Stu. I've tried to get artificial intelligence to write articles for me. Like, sometimes I write basic articles and blog posts that are more general, that are like, safe topics, and AI can do that great. When some of the bleeding edge stuff that I'm talking about, I try to get artificial intelligence to write, and artificial intelligence has not caught up to where I am, at least today. And so I am excited to be the guy that's on the bleeding edge, hacking away at the palm trees with machetes and getting shot by natives who are not happy I'm in their land. But we're doing it for the kingdom. So that's the point.
Perfect. Well, all the different links that we talked about in this episode, they will be in the show notes, so you can find them all down below. So be sure to check out the article on the mission in the metaverse. Check out leadnet.org/MLC for the learning community. Again, if you're interested in that, be sure to use the coupon stunami, STUNAMI, for that. If you have any more questions about the VR Church Planning Network, what that would look like for you or your church, love to have that conversation with you. You can reach out to me on Discord through the Metaverse Church podcast Discord, or at metaversechurchpodcast@gmail.com. All that will be there in the show notes. But Jeff, last statements, anything?
Man, I love that you're in this space. I love that you're doing what you're doing. I am so excited. You and Goose are doing this podcast. You guys are the experts in metaverse ministry, and so seeing you pave the way and challenge others to follow suit is an awesome thing. And so I want to thank you for doing what you're doing, not only doing your church, but having the heart to see other churches get started in that space. The idea of church multiplication is not, it's not a popular one. A lot of times people are centered around their ministry and having theirs be the best. But what I've loved about Lakeland, and what I love about you is that you and Goose are both multiplication minded, and you're the settler that's building off of what I started, but you're also the pioneer that's paving the way for somebody else to come behind to do that. And so, man, thank you for doing what you're doing on a regular basis.
Thanks, bro. All that being said, we will catch you next week for another episode of the Metaverse Church Podcast. Until then, be blessed.